Welcome to What the Hell. Today's episode is going to be a little bit downer because what we're going to talk about is Southwest Keys program. This program was initiated in 1987 by Juan Sanchez, which I giggle a little bit after I say that Juan Sanchez.
It is a very
Funny.
no.
It's a funny situation.
It's a stereotypical name.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
you know, it's the kind of name that
Juan Sanchez.
yeah.
Anyways, get it off the comedy basis on that one. It's a Southwest Key program is a Texas-based nonprofit organization. I said profit on accident because it's technically, if you look at the stuff and everything like that, it's more or less for profit of how they do their stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And right now, they're not in the media as much as they should, as a program that should be shut down. And a lot of people, if they've actually worked for I've ran through interviews with people that's actually worked there, what their business practices. I'm looking at looked at their business practice and everything like that. And since the camera's on my laptop, now they can see that I'm actually just reading from Wikipedia. But
And there's no shame in that at all.
yeah, sometimes you get some good information. Sometimes you get some bad information, like we did that one time with
the Menendez case.
Menendez case, yeah. But basically, it's a shelter for kids, and what they do is they take these children that either the family members that are trying to come in over here illegally, they take these kids to these facilities to be taken care of for education and everything like that. Up front, it looks like a good program. I if I just looked at the preset of what they're trying to do and everything, yeah, I'd be totally for this. But once you look in the background of a lot of stuff, they have child trafficking. Their financial stuff, because of it being a charity organization, is off the wall. I mean, they're more or less profited, I think it was 2019? No, 18. They profited more than $400 million.
Yeah, it was the government contract that they got.
Yeah, and what actually happens with a lot of this funding, they actually make more money because they set up a dummy corporation that buys facilities and they rent it out for the organization so they can funnel money through other things and they basically treat themselves as like a bank through on a lot of the cases through child abuse, child trafficking and everything like that. I mean, the reason why they're able to do this is because of the laws that stipulate that if a child is in the United States up until they're 18, they can't be deported until they're 18. That's the reason why they can get through these things. And this is the facility that people were arguing about as what during Trump's administration as being they're separating children and everything like that. But
They were doing that during the Obama administration.
Yeah, it got really
Obama's
headway through.
administration built the cages that they were supposedly throwing these kids into.
And it's the same program.
Yeah, it's the same program, but it's the left's ability to just kind of really spin it and omit certain.
Well, it's the same thing
facts.
what they're doing. It's the same thing what the right's doing now about all this stuff too, which taking care of kids shouldn't be political.
It shouldn't.
And even when I say this, you got to look at school systems. I still can't believe to be like the president or whatever of the school district, you have to say that you're Republican or Democrat. That shouldn't fucking matter.
It shouldn't. And I think you just barely beat the
I beat it.
timeline.
I beat it.
But
I looked at the clock.
Yeah, there's a
5-minute time limit.
5-minute time limit on YouTube. So if you drop the F-bomb or something like that within 5 minutes, they take your video down.
Well, they don't take the video data. It's just marked, and it doesn't get
It gets flagged. Yeah.
flagged,
Yeah.
and can't get monetized or
there's no
anything like that.
monetization. But
So
the thing, you know, the problem with politicizing anything is that once a party, it doesn't matter if it's the left or if it's the right, if it doesn't matter if it's the moderates, doesn't matter if it's the independents, it doesn't matter. Once a group politicizes anything like kids, you know, the trafficking of kids, the separation of kids, it can't be unpoliticized. It can't. And as hard as you may want to try, it's like, okay, so, you know, the Republicans, the GOP, they're trying to correct the issue here. And then the left is going to take that and spin it as, oh, well, they're monsters because they're keeping these kids away and they're sending them back, or, you know, they're not caring for the welfare of these kids. And it really gives them the opportunity to point the finger somewhere else. And, you know, the whole, and I could be completely off base here, and I don't think that I am too far off, but the whole not being able to deport kids before they're 18 thing, I think that that's a misinterpretation of the Anchor law, where you know, kids come in or parents come in that are pregnant, and they have a kid that's here. That kid's not naturalized by birth. I mean, just because you're born on one side of the border or the other doesn't mean that you're a citizen of that country versus the country of your parents' origin. I think, especially if the parents come over here legally, then yes, those kids are naturalized by birth. But if they come over here, they're illegal immigrants or refugees, as it were. Those kids are still considered citizens of the country of origin.
I thought if they are actually born in the United States,
I did
they're a
too.
United States citizen.
No.
Really? That's new on me.
No, see, and that's where the misinterpretation came from, is that the left came back and said, well, these kids were born here, they're American citizens. Well, no, they're not, because their parents came over here illegally. And it's not a racial thing. It's really not. As much as the left wants to make it a race issue, I mean, we've got refugees, we've got illegal immigrants coming here from all over the world. We've got Asian, you know, we've got Asians, you know, the Pacific, what is it, what do they call the Pan-Asians or whatever, Indonesia, I mean, even Canada's coming over here illegally. You know, obviously we got South and Central America, Europeans, Africans, they're still coming over here illegally, Chinese. I mean, there's even people coming over here from Russia that are illegal.
God, man, I'm looking at the Anchor Baby stuff and everything like that. I was like, man, that's mind blowing.
See, because these parents will come over here. I mean, they'll come over here and then they'll have their babies here, and they say, well, my baby, I can't be separated from my baby. Well, while that may be true, we can still deport you, but because you broke the law when you came over here to have your kid, you, your kid, and your spouse, or whatever, you're all going to, I mean, the way that the law was written is that entire family should get deported. And that's, you know, because if you look at internationally, immigration laws, internationally, for example, let's just use Mexico as just that microcosm here, okay? If you go over to Mexico illegally and they catch you, there's no due process. They throw you in prison.
Yeah.
There's no, we're going to have a deportation hearing. No, they put you in their penal system. And if you survive that, then they deport you. Then if they catch you again, you go away forever. And that's all there is to it. So, you know, but what they do is they try to spin this as some kind of like racial issue by saying, well, you're just being discriminatory against Latinos. I'm like, no, that's not it at all. You're here illegally. It doesn't matter where you came from.
Yeah, most of them actually right now is people from Nigeria.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you know,
and people are like, no. I was like, yeah.
See, because you look at the immigration law, and I know we're slightly getting a little off track, but you look at the immigration law, it's there for a reason. It was written the way that it was for a reason, because you start looking at, not only are you breaking the law by coming over here without documentation, you're coming over here without visas and things of that nature. You came through by hopping a fence, crossing an unwatched portion of the border. You're here illegally. You did not go through the proper channels. You didn't obtain a visa. You didn't obtain a green card. You're not naturalized.
Yeah.
through the citizenship process, and you start seeing these avenues become institutionalized, and so they're coming through this way, undocumented. Nobody's vetting these people at all,
Yeah.
and that's a national security risk.
And when we say vetting these people, we're making sure these people are here for like a legitimate reason, like work and everything like that. There's some people, and that come over here just to push their cartel stuff. And a lot of people are like, "No, that's not what happens. You're just being." I was like, "No, no, I've seen the bodies."
Yeah, in this day and time, day and age rather, that we're fighting this, we're still fighting this war on terror. We're still dealing with people like little remnants of Al Qaeda. We're talking about ISIS. We're talking about all these other radical Islamic
Yeah.
groups. They're radicalizing people from all over the world, and they're sending them into the United States to set up sleeper cells. I know that sounds all conspiracy theory.
No, it's actually quite true. That's what's
it's very true.
I mean, that's how 9/11 happened.
Right, and so what we're in fact doing, or what the left is doing, by offering sanctuary cities and politicizing the issue, trying to make the GOP look evil, is they're trying to forsake the sovereignty of our borders.
Exactly.
And ultimately, I think what the goal is, and I mean, this is on a grander conspiracy theory scale, but we're talking about one world government, and then it's like even the UN tried to chime in, and representatives from the Trump administration were like, just shut the fuck up and go away.
Yeah.
Because we're talking about, we're talking about our sovereignty here. We're talking about our national security. We're trying to bolster our borders. The wall was not a race issue. The wall was about security, pure, plain, and simple.
And in
Like,
my
even
opinion,
if you were to go to Australia, if you go to visit Australia as a tourist, you have to have your own health insurance, or you purchase the insurance from the government.
yeah,
You have to have proof that you can be economically viable if you are there for anything longer than what you claim
yeah.
initially, or they don't let you come and visit.
Canada's even a lot worse.
Yeah, Canada's worse. If
If you want to go to Canada and stay in Canada for a while, you have to have somebody sponsor you. They have to put up $1,000 to sponsor you to stay in that country.
Yeah, and like for example, my uncle, his wife and daughter, they just barely got here from the Philippines. She's a Filipino national, and he was going through all the channels trying to get her a visa, this, that, and I mean, and we're talking about like the State Department. I mean, just from the information about that particular situation that I'm aware of, the State Department and whatever agents or representatives therein that they were working through, through liaisons and stuff like that, through the embassy there in the Philippines, nickel and diamond. I mean, we are talking about thousands of dollars.
Yeah, that's the same thing a friend of mine's going through right now to get his daughter and wife back into the United States, because they left there. They left in Japan, and he couldn't afford to bring them back again. Her mom, it was her mom that passed through cancer. Her and her father both died of cancer and everything. And it was cheaper to stay over there for a little bit. And now he's going through the process again. And I think he spent probably around about $1,600 so far to actually get the stuff initiated. And we're just waiting on the interviews. Like, oh, how long have you been married, blah, 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 tell your friends. I was like, yeah, they've been married for a while and everything. And it's just it's a process, but it's a red tape process. And
Yeah.
red tape processes are freaking ridiculous. I had a friend of mine when I was in Bahrain that he was stationed at Nellis.
Mm-hmm.
And he was a Mexican descent.
Right.
He had a Mexican citizenship, and from his own words, he made it all the way up to Chicago from crossing the border. and he joined the Air Force and everything and became a cook. And we were asking, we were having a talk with Chief Master Sergeant, because he just sat there and we just started talking. And he was asking about how long does it take for citizenship, and the chief was like, it takes as long as it takes, as much red tape they have. You should be a little bit bumped in the line because of you're going through the process through the United States, but it's still going to probably take about 5 years.
Yeah, well, see, the thing of it is that when immigrants join the United States military, they are supposed to be, as part of the incentive to serve under our flag, is they are supposed to be granted citizenship at the end of their enlistment.
Yeah, it's still it.
But you still see a lot of combat veterans that served for the U.S. with the U.S.
Yeah.
getting deported after they get off of active duty, and they're kind of just bumped to the back of the line, and a lot of that really started to take place in huge numbers, especially after Biden took office, because that process started ramping up as far as trying to streamline it during the Bush administration, Bush Jr., okay? Because, he was the one that took us to Iraq. He was the one that took us to Afghanistan. And he was the president that was sitting in the Oval Office and when we had to respond to 9/11. And so, and you had all of these individuals that were wanting to step up, and they were wanting to serve. They were wanting to do their part. They were the ones answering the call to arms, where you get a lot of these millennials and snowflakes and these college students that are sitting around talking about how evil the United States is. We got people that have been wanting to become American citizens, willing to put on our uniform and go and do the job that these little snot-nosed kids that are growing up in the suburbs and inner cities that they don't want to do because they feel like they're entitled. And that's people of any color. It's not about white privilege. It's not it's not about any kind of equal opportunity or anything like that. But they were being given this opportunity, and that's a program that's been in place since World War II. The United States government's been issuing citizenship to foreign nationals after they've completed a tour of duty or an initial enlistment with the United States military.
Yeah, it's a way to actually get bumped into the line.
Yeah.
Really. And it's one of those things that it's like the French Foreign Legion.
Yeah, the French Foreign Legion is more of a, hey, we know that you've committed a lot of bad things here. It's crime.
Yeah, it's more or less a mercenary group.
Yeah, it's a mercenary group sponsored by the French government, but you get that old adage, which is, how do you defeat the French? You scream at them really loud. But the Foreign Legion, these dudes, they don't care.
Yeah, they're pretty.
They basically fight because they've got nowhere else to go.
Yeah. And
once they complete an enlistment, and it's usually, I think it's a lifetime enlistment, isn't it? Unless they're injured or something, I don't remember, but
It's nothing. Okay. This is from probably about 6 or 7 years ago. It's probably still implemented. When you go into the French Foreign Legion and everything, right, they ask you a couple of questions. One of the questions is, do you want anybody to know that you're here?
Right.
And they go, no. Okay, you do not exist anymore. Blah, blah, blah. It's really, if you actually think, it's kind of like Jason Bourne-ish to the fact to where I was like, they don't know your name. They don't know anything. You're just a gun for hire.
Yeah. In a world where you don't matter anymore.
Yeah.
But, a lot of these guys, literally, they're facing that quintessential go to war, go to jail type situation. And so they're serving, and they're getting their sentences commuted after they, complete, like X amount of combat tours, whatever. But, getting back to our borders, it's that's a program that we instituted back in World War II.
Well, we had the same thing. You can either go to jail or you can go to the Army or Marines.
Not so much anymore.
No,
they stopped doing that back in the 70s or 80s. But when we're talking about kids, quote unquote, being separated from their parents. I mean, really, as much as they want to try to spin it, as much as they want to try to revise
Okay,
history, that's
here's
an
the
Obama program.
Here's the French foreign language. The initial contract is for 5 years. At the
Okay.
end of the first contract, the Legionnaire can choose to continue his career by means of successful contracts, whose duration varies between 6 months to 5 years. So,
Yeah, but that video that we watched this morning about that Southwest Keys program, it almost, it made me really think of, you remember when Wounded Warrior first started getting real big, and
yeah,
they
it was
went-
a
they
thing
went
to
from
do,
a-
and it went downhill.
Yeah, they went from a grassroots movement to, now they've got this multi-million-dollar complex down in Florida, and the CEO of Wounded Warrior went from operating a 501c nonprofit to this dude's pulling down 6 figures a year.
Yeah, which is actually illegal.
Very.
Yeah.
And so he stepped down.
And I hate to say it, it's like the church industry. I mean, the high dollar ones and everything like that, to where the fact that you just have these people that are just pushing in money, getting money. Oh, but the good Lord wants me to have a private plane, type deal, and they're not paying taxes or anything like that. And most of our problems can actually be solved by, taxing. Which it would probably not even, they would find like some kind of loophole and everything like that, like most companies. But you have these organizations that, by law, and this is legitimate, by law, the only thing they have to give up is 2%.
Well, the churches, the rule about churches not being taxed, I think that was created.
It was
back
for
when everything was a small church. So it was designed to protect those smaller congregations from having them taxed out of existence.
No, it was a little bit more in depth than that.
Right.
It was the separation of church and state. You can't pay taxes and everything and go in and dictate laws type of deal.
The separation from church and state is the biggest and the most egregious perversion of grammar committed by both the media and the Democrat Party, because there is nothing written in the Constitution that states that there is a separation between the two. What the Constitution mandates is that there should be no government-sponsored religion.
Yeah.
And anybody who spends the time to go back and read the Bill of Rights, go back and read the Constitution the way that it was written, will see that. It's written there very plainly that there's no government-sponsored religion. There's no separation. You can't have the 10 Commandments on the steps of the courthouse because that violates separation of church and state. You are so full of shit that it's not even funny. It's like we can have these religious monuments out there because at the end of the day, if you go back and you look, we are founded on Judeo-Christian principles.
It's not even that. It's more of the First Amendment itself, freedom of religion.
The freedom. And that's part of the reason why people started settling here in the first place, is so that way they could come here and they could worship as they saw fit without fear of persecution. Now it's becoming that way because the left and the media and all of their little talking heads and all of these 1960s radical retreads that failed to get their job done through demonstrations, they got themselves educated and instilled themselves into our academia across the country, and now they're indoctrinating our kids to think to think the same flawed ideologies as they did. So you get these people that come in there and are like, well, you can't have this, and this because of this, that, and this. No, we're protected to do A, B, and C because of the First Amendment. First Amendment and every other amendment in our Constitution and our Bill of Rights is protected by the Second. So you get rid of the guns, you get rid of everything else, and then you can install your totalitarian. I cannot talk today.
Fascism.
Totalitarian government.
Yeah.
Okay. You can preach what you want. Nobody can say anything otherwise, and if you get caught, you get treated as some kind of insurrectionist, and you can get arrested for it. So they're trying to control the minds, control the hearts, control the thought processes, Because everybody, you remember that little key phrase everybody kept tossing around, and as soon as it was put out there in the mainstream, it was beaten down real quick as being some kind of whack job, alt-right conspiracy theory. Remember the thought police? You remember that little key phrase during the Obama
Yeah, because they have
administration?
it. They have it more or less in Europe.
Yeah. So like, okay, so in Europe,
The thought police?
the thought police, yes.
Like, we're talking like 1984.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's okay. Okay, if you out somebody, a trans person, in England, you can be arrested.
Yeah, they have hate speech.
Yeah, because it derives
speech
into
laws.
hate speech.
And
The same
so-
thing. Same thing in Canada. A comedian was doing his act and everything, and he didn't know the new laws and everything. And he got arrested.
Yeah, so they'll look at your social media posts, and if they deem that you are committing a hate speech law violation, they will arrest you on that.
Yeah. Europe has a lot of weird laws, especially like I was explaining to him about getting people in the photos and everything like that, and we were talking about getting one of what is it, the non-disclosure agreement, the one.
Oh
you
yeah,
can
the
download
social media release, yeah.
Yeah, doing that with a lot of people and everything. Do you want to do that for this weekend?
We should probably go ahead and do that. What I'll
Just
do,
just to
yeah,
save our ass.
just to save it, yes. I mean,
But-
I'll find a generic form, and I'll print off like 30 of them, just so that
Okay.
way hey, we have to work within a certain like confine.
Yeah.
So it's, that we don't go like crazy. Hey, you wanna? No, it's like okay. Well,
Because that whole this is so freaking
well,
hilarious.
see, because we have these laws here about using people's likenesses without their consent.
But no, there's that whole Viking dancer, blonde hair, had like a Thor necklace and everything.
Mhm.
He was like dancing and everything, and anyways, he got very popular very fast, and he didn't want it.
Yeah.
So they have laws now. So if I take a picture, I take a picture of you in front of the Eiffel Tower, okay? You got to make sure that there's no one in the background, or you fuzzy their face and everything. And if you don't, and they find out that they're in your picture, they can sue you.
Oh.
Yeah.
Kind of like a media release.
Yeah.
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 Okay.
Because you have to Photoshop a lot of stuff nowadays. If you get like photos from Europe,
Yeah.
it's not in the United States, but because most people don't really care. I mean, very, very, very few people in the United States don't care. But going back, since we like to jump around a lot, going back to the Southwest Keys program.
Welcome to the calamity and chaos that is our show.
Yeah, that's why I don't know why I didn't put it on there, but I put on the last episode of What the Hell, Wrath of Man.
Yeah.
In parentheses, I put into it eventually.
Eventually, yes.
Did it not show up? I think it was just the Wrath of Man.
I don't know.
I'm gonna look it up real quick. But yeah,
See, this is why I love this girl, because she brought up 1984, and that wasn't even an inkling of a connection for me.
I loved that book. That was one of the few
yeah, it
books-
just says review. I'm gonna.
one of the few books I actually enjoyed.
Yeah, I read that book too, and I watched the movie too, and it
The
had
movie
that.
was so horrible. God.
Well, it was made in.
I didn't watch the movie.
That
But you're talking
area.
about like thought police and like the way that they're
Well,
teaching
there's
our
several-
kids to think these days.
Yeah.
And it's literally like the book, like 2 + 2 = 5. And if you
Mhm.
say differently, then
Well, it's the same thing with
Say
like
differently, racist.
Equilibrium, Fahrenheit
451.
451.
Ray Bradbury.
I mean, there's a lot of writers that write to the point to where it doesn't want to have that the Orson was it
Orson Welles.
Yeah.
Orson Welles-ish utopia, because in all reality, the only utopia that you can actually have something like that is
The closest we'll ever get is a dystopia. That is it.
yeah.
And it's usually because there was a small excerpt I remember from the 8th grade reading U.S. history that some group had tried to create a utopian community and it failed miserably.
Well, they have
There's
one
even a
in-
hippie commune out in California
Yeah,
where
yeah,
they're like,
yeah.
oh, there's no laws, but yet there are rules.
Yeah.
Somebody enforces those rules. So it's like you can't have the truest definition of a utopia because even during the framing of the Constitution, when they were arguing back and forth the pros and cons, the Federalist versus the Anti-Federalist papers, that they said that if men were of angels, there would be no requirement for law, but because men are not of angels and prone to sin, we require law. And it requires a government, albeit a small but limited government, and that is the problem. And you go back to red tape. The biggest problem why people try to get in here illegally is because the system has gotten so bloated and so over the top, and
It
the
should not
larger the public sector is, the less incentivized the private sector is to do their jobs.
Well, you also got to look at it this way, and I try to implement this on a lot of people that say it was like, oh, we should just get away with immigration. I was like, immigration technically isn't the problem. The problem is the manpower. We don't have it.
No, we don't.
The reason why it takes 5 years is because you probably only have like 3 people going for 3,000 people.
Well,
Or
okay,
even-
so that's the
even
slippery
more
slope.
than that.
Right, but that's the slippery slope. Okay, so the reason why we're underpowered is because the size of the government, and the size of the government institutes all these extra channels that you've got to go through. You got to go, instead of check-ins blocks A, B, and C, you got to go A1, A2, A3, A4. Then you can go to block B, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then just you add all these extra steps because everybody's got to have their finger in the pot. And the more chiefs you have, the less Indians you have, and nothing ever gets accomplished because somebody's always trying to step on somebody else's toes because they think their way is always better. You streamline the situation, the government. Like for example, if let's just touch on the IRS for just a split second. If you were to not necessarily abolish the IRS, but you could cut the size of the IRS by 75%. You really could. You could fire 75% of the people who work for the actual IRS. Instead of going to these graduated tax tables, give everybody a flat tax of say like 17%. So it doesn't matter what you make. You pay 17% of what you bring in, and that's it. Doesn't matter if you make $1 million a year or you make $25,000 a year. You pay 17%. Everybody pays the same. So you don't talk about the classes because the terms classes, sectors, those are socialist terms. And that so we get a lot of our vernacular when you're talking about defining people, breaking them up into groups, and the way that how government is supposed to work. Those are socialistic ideals and concepts that are derived from Marxism. So Karl Marx even said that to each his own, from each or to each his or to each. Oh, how does it go? It's right there on the tip of my tongue. To each from their ability, or kind of paraphrasing here, like to each from, or based on your need, from from each based on their ability, kind of a thing. And it goes back to the whole, the conversation you and I had last week, where if I bust my ass in class all year and I get an A,
Yeah.
and Tommy fuck up and Susan, Susie J. Rottencrotch over there fuck off all year, they get an F. They take my A and split it in half, give everybody a C because it's fair. No, fuck that. Because your time and your labor are, your personal property and your wealth are a direct representation of your time and labor.
Exactly. And that goes to what's happening right now,
Right.
where people are making more money sitting on their ass
Mhm.
and not doing anything, or they're finally going out, being able to go on vacation and everything. It's the catch-22 on that one. Yes, I can understand that you worked your ass off. Now you finally get like almost a year-long vacation. But here's the thing. You don't do anything else with your life, and by the time that you need to do something else, you can't do it because someone that's willing to do your job has already got the job.
Yeah, I mean, it de-incentivizes people to be innovative. It de-incentivizes the workforce, and that is one of the key tactics of socialism, is to consolidate everybody, to make them dependent upon the government, so that way when somebody comes along with this revolutionary idea, and I say revolutionary with the air quotes, to get out and provide for yourself, to come off of the government, to do for your own. Now all of a sudden that person is being painted evil by the ones who want that centralized control.
Yeah.
Because it's all about power for them at that point.
Yeah, and it's the same thing with this Southwest Keys.
Yeah.
It's to the point where they're giving out loans to people they know and everything like that. They're basically illegally using the funds they're gaining from the government, our tax dollars, our money, that's supposed to be beneficial to the United States, and they're giving it to other people to make them more money.
Did you pick up in that video that you sent me the link for that La Raza was in there?
Yeah.
La Raza is the Latino version of CARE, which is the organization that looks out for Muslims.
Yeah.
They are the, I mean, that and the NAACP, wildly racist organizations. I mean, huge. If you are not of that ethnicity, you don't mean shit.
Yeah.
Absolute squat. And so he's over there accepting these awards from La Raza. It's like, okay, premise, he's receiving an award because he's doing something to take care of this particular group. Now, if you take that situation and a Hispanic man or a white guy, if he was white and he was doing this for, say, white children, somehow he would be demonized in the media and everything else. The government, the left, the Democrat Party would come up with so many, like, I mean, he'd be in front of a congressional panel right now.
Yeah.
Answering for, you know, the racist practices of his
Or basic
organization.
hate crimes and everything like
Yeah,
that.
they'd be raking him over the coals. But because he's doing it in the name of the children, the same children that he's exploiting, somehow he gets a free pass on it.
Yeah,
And
because
it's
they're
such a
making
wild-
so
yeah.
much money off of these kids.
At
mean-
best, at best, if it were me, at best, he should be only making 5 figures a year.
Yeah, and
I
right
think
now,
maybe he should even then he should cap out at maybe 65,000 a year.
yeah, as of right now, the it happened in February 2019. They had an investigation. The FBI had an investigation on the chief financial officer, Medill. Man, my dyslexia hit up like really hardcore right then. Chung, who resigned. Her salary had been an estimated $1 million
Yeah, now,
as a charity organization.
yeah. Now, if you look at their website, southwestkey.org, Andrew Harper, the only white guy on their entire staff, is their CIO, and he's their chief information officer.
Well, yeah, you gotta have a white guy, you know.
Yeah, I mean, but you know, you got the COO, Joella Brooks. She's black. Let's just call it what it is. Their president and CEO, Dr. Anselmo Villarreal. Eric
Villarreal,
Moran
yeah.
is their CFO. You know,
Valeria.
Villarreal. Yeah, that's what I said. Potato. Anyways, don't judge me. I told you this morning I know just enough to get myself in trouble with the drive-thru. Villarreal. Okay.
So
I've
my
been
question,
corrected. Okay.
when they come over with their kids, why are the parents leaving the kids here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're just dumping them.
Why? As a
Because-
mother,
okay.
I don't get that.
Because they don't want to, in hindsight, and this is the only thing I can come up with, is they don't want to get as much trouble as they possibly can. And they think in the back of their mind they can come back over to pick up their kids, which our laws state we're trying to, this program technically, okay, in all hindsight, this program is technically supposed to be more beneficial for the children to educate them, to give them a better life and everything like that, than send them back. Because of the laws and everything. And if they wanted to, they can get a college degree, start up and get a college degree here. The basis of the program is supposed to be beneficial, but there's so much that's getting done to the fact of they're being extorted.
Yeah, that's why I was just looking here on the Office of the Inspector General for the Department of Health and Human Services, and this was back in 2016. They were not doing proper making sure, vetting, I guess is that what you were trying to say.
Yeah.
For 8,323 kids released to sponsors in 2016 without adequate documentation. I would be livid as
Oh,
a
yeah.
mom. I would be livid.
As a father, I can deal with being away from my kid for a certain amount, because she lives in South Dakota, and it was more beneficial for her to be in South Dakota, and I can't stand cold. But I'm always in with my daughter's life. I'm always calling. I'm seeing how she's doing. There is that school shooting, and I just. They asked me, I was like, what are you doing? I'm calling my daughter. I'm going to make sure she's all right. And they're like, one person was like, why do you get, I was like, listen, you can fire me and I don't give a fuck. Go ahead and do it. I'll walk right the fuck out, but I'm going to make sure my daughter's all right. My job, my career, or anything I have is not worth my daughter. She came from my blood. Way too much sometimes. Way too much.
I can understand as a mom, if you have very little means, not a lot of opportunity, you worry about taking care of your kids. As a single mom, I worry about that all the time.
Yeah.
And I have 4 kids. And so I can understand them as, we'll look at it as them not trying to do something bad or illegal, but them bringing their kids over and saying, okay, I'm entrusting these people to take care of my child, to give them a better life than what I can give them right now. But, if that was me and I was entrusting these people, and then I couldn't imagine not.
It's just that one of those things is me and one of my old hosts that doesn't want to do it anymore. We were talking about being parents, and there's no real book about it.
Oh no. And every kid's different.
Yeah, one kid will be, like your kid's. I can't even think of the word right now. I'm sorry.
He's got Asperger's.
Yeah, Asperger's.
And I have one with Tourette's.
Yeah.
And
And
every
I
kid's different.
I have one that has a really sick mind that she got from me. No, she sent me this photo. She's like, Dad, look at this. This is really weird at this angle. It's like, I looked at it. I was like, Maura, are you with people with a suicide pact or something like that? Because it was just dolls hanging up. And that's all I got from it. I was like, are you showing me a suicide pact that's gone right? What's going on here? And she's like, no, Dad, it's dolls. Oh, yeah, okay, it's dolls. But that's freaking hilarious. I'm going to make a meme for that. I was like,
That's like
Go
a
with
kid
it.
calling. My God, dude. Okay, so during Little League this past spring, I stand next to the dugout, right? Because I'm your stereotypical baseball dad, right? I used to coach, and I find it really hard for me to not coach. Anyways, so he's standing in the dugout, and they're up to bat, and I'm like, okay, dude, the person that's in the batting order in front of him is on deck, and I was like, I look at him, I'm like, you get ready because you're in the hole. And he'll give me this look. He's just like, and I'm like, don't. And he'll just look at me and go, that's what she said. And I'm like, he's 12. So, he's definitely my offspring. And
Yeah, there's times you just
You know.
gotta bite your tongue.
he sends me these TikTok videos all the time, where it's the Michael Scott, that's what she said compilation videos, like, and
Yeah.
they'll do the Marvel, that's what she said videos, and I'm just sitting there going, okay, that one's good, but most of but when I have them, for when it's my time to have them, it seems like I can't say something, I can't go more than 10 or 15 minutes without saying something, and he'll look at me and go, that's what she said, and I'm like,
And then I get on.
and then she enables him. They're like little partners in crime. Like if I'm sitting there on FaceTime, and I'll say something just completely. The context is so far removed from anything dirty. They'll both say it, and I'm like,
Oh, I got even worse. Well, it's not really worse. It's about the same. It's the same. Well, yesterday I took a friend of mine and her son to go get ice cream, and he was like, "Well, I want Doritos." And she bought him Doritos. She's like, "Okay, here's some Doritos and everything like that, but you can't eat it in the car." I was told him, I was like, "You can't eat in the car. It's a new car. I've kept it up like a couple of months, keeping it clean and everything like that." And she's eating. I was like, listen, you gotta have a little bit of self-control and just show by example and everything like that. And by the time I'm just keeping my eyes straight because I'm driving, I'm not looking back or anything like that, and all I hear in the back is crunching sound from a Dorito, and I was like, did you just? And she just blatantly just lost it right then and there. She's laughing her head off and everything. I was like, okay, this is happening.
Mm-hmm.
Can't kill anybody
Mm-mm.
because it's against the law.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I could find a spot
It's the
to
do
get
what
rid of the bodies, but I mean, he's
that you can't-
6,
you-
so he's not that much weight. You can get rid of the body, but her, it's going to be a little bit of choppy there because
You can't
you know.
kill them because it's against the law, and you can't eat them because that's against the law of nature, dude. That's just all there is to it.
Fuck you on that last part. I mean, look at freaking lions. Lions do it all the time. I can do that shit.
Hey, look. I'm all about the dentist who shot Cecil the lion. Dude, I support you 100%. But yeah, I mean, at a certain point, I get what you're saying. You just got to look at him and be like, you know what? I brought that into this world. That's my fault. That's on me.
Well, I can't even say that because it's her kid, but she's like, but he wanted the Doritos so bad. And I'm like,
That's hard for us moms. That's hard for us moms to say no. I mean, my kids call me all the time and ask for,
Oh my
and it's
God,
hard.
yes.
It's hard. It's hard.
It is. And I see it like yesterday.
because you get to that stand and
Well,
I
her
was like,
oldest called yesterday, and he's like, Mom, like,
He's
he's 18, and he's calling her, and he's like, Mom, well, they got something. Can I get something too? And I'm over there going, wow, because I mean, as a divorced dad, I'm a single dad. I'm just like, I want to be able to do for my kids. I want to be able to get them things, But at the same time, I'm just kind of like, no, just stop,
we. I'm so glad that me and my ex-wife have a policy to where she has to work to get what she wants. I mean, she has her own PlayStation, her gaming laptop. She's only 14, but she's worked for that stuff. That's both me and her. We implemented that. It's like, I was like, when she's down here and everything, I was like, hey, Dad, can I go get some snacks? Yeah. Dishes are right there. There's the vacuum,
But see,
and
that's
the laundry's right there. And
that's
she
our
does all the
generation.
work. Yeah.
That's our generation. I mean, I worked at 15. I wanted to go on a mission trip with the church, with the youth group. I had to pay my own way, and Daddy was like, well, you play ball with the girl whose dad owns McDonald's down the street, so go get a job over there. And I worked to pay for that.
I had my own lawn business at 11.
I was a lifeguard. junior, senior year, and freshman year in college.
Yeah.
I had to work for myself. I babysat. My kids are like, and it's my fault because you want to give them all the things that you didn't have when you were growing
That's
up.
the
Yeah.
same thing. That's the
That's-
same thing with
yeah.
my parents. They did the same. They grew up poor and everything like that.
Mhm.
And I had a conversation when I was at a call center. And we were all going, it's like, my life sucked because of this. My life sucked because of this. And I was about to say my life sucked. I was like, fuck, I had an AT-AT. I had Castle Grayskull. My life didn't suck. My life was awesome.
Dude, I
Uh-huh.
had all
And-
the
and
original
it's
Star
all
Wars
because-
figures.
Well,
I
it's
had
all.
all of the original He-Man figures.
Yeah.
Dude, I'm sitting there thinking, I'm like, okay, because my dad, obviously breadwinner for the house, right? He in the Navy, trying to support his wife and his 4 kids on Navy pay, right? Not
Yeah.
the easiest thing in the world to do.
My dad did it on Air Force pay, and he still
Yeah.
had to
That's
You
my
know,
have a
fault.
second
So,
job.
and we were living, like when we lived in Hawaii for a few years, my dad was stationed in Pearl Harbor. It's like everything is more expensive on the island anyway because they got to.
I mean, nowadays it's like a gallon of milk's like $6.
Mhm.
But yeah, and I remember we were sitting around the dinner table one day, and my dad, because my dad being on a ship with the Pacific Fleet, he'd go to places like Hong Kong, Taiwan, all that stuff. I mean, he'd go to where a lot of the products that we enjoy were made.
Yeah.
And they had like a Nike or a Reebok store there, where like the secondhand stuff, they had like the small little defects that they couldn't put out.
Yeah.
And, they would get sold there like dirt cheap.
Like, what was it? What was it, like the strip malls?
Kind of, sort of, like little outlet malls, but
Yeah,
these
yeah,
were
outlet
like, these
malls, that's
were
what I was
considered factory defects, right?
Yeah.
Like to be like a small blemish on the sole, like too much glue came out or something.
Yeah.
And you remember back in the day, the Reebok pumps, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I had a pair.
I wanted a pair so bad, right? Because I'm like sitting there going, all my friends at school,
Yeah.
they had the Nike Airs, they had the Jordans when they were first coming out, the Reebok pumps, and my dad, sitting at the dinner table, had made this like little comment, right? He goes, because he had been home from his latest cruise for like a month, right? And we were talking about the Reebok pumps, and he was like, yeah, a guy on the ship saw some overseas, and they were like $35, which $35 back in the like early 90s, that was still a pretty considerable chunk of cash. And he's like, yeah, his son wanted a pair of those, but he just really couldn't afford it. I was like, I looked at my dad and I go, so did he end up getting them? Right, completely oblivious.
And I was like,
Then it dawned on me, like, oh, I see who the guy in the story is, and the kid is me. Yeah, now I feel like a complete asshole. But it's like, my parents went out of their way to, get us the things that we wanted. Like,
yeah, and that's.
we didn't get the original Nintendo until like.
I got mine like after about 3 to 4 years after it came out.
Yeah, it was like 3, 4, 5 years after it come out, and
I
it was
in
like
high school when we
it
got
was
ours.
the big Christmas gift for everybody, right?
Yeah.
And I'm
My
sitting
dad,
there.
my dad's still pissed off at me for that because we had the Dragon Warrior game, and I erased his data.
Well, see, you had those expensive games where it had the battery backup in there, like Zelda, right? We're talking about, like, we opened it up, dude, and I fell out. I'm like, oh my God, we have a Nintendo, right? Because all the other kids in the neighborhood had Nintendo.
Yeah.
You wanted to play Nintendo, you go over there. And so, like, they bought a bunch of games. And then they had, you remember, it was, you could play 4 players on it, but it was like the wireless thing, right? And it always had like 1,800 AA batteries in it.
Yeah.
But, like, there was Tetris, Dr. Mario, there was a Jack Nicklaus presents, championship golf game in there, right? And I'm sitting there going, I'm like, I know who that's for. Because my dad, big golf player, and I would later discover the joys of golf.
That was another thing
But-
that kind of pissed me off. Me and Kai were talking about it. It was like, what happened to the turbo button?
Yeah.
I've still got, you remember the NES Advantage?
No,
the
I'm
joystick
talking
with
about
the big,
games
big
for
button?
us nowadays.
Yeah.
We can't get controllers that have turbo buttons anymore.
Yeah, you can. You get the Pro controllers where you can program the macros.
Oh, can you?
Yeah. like, okay, so last weekend I had my kids and I had them bring their Switch, right? And I have already purchased 2 or possibly even 3 sets of Joy-Cons for their Switch, but the joystick, like on the right Joy-Con, is constantly going out, and I know why. And you can fight me all day and tell me otherwise. It's because, you know, when they lay it down on the screen, and that joystick gets jammed in one position.
Yeah.
So I'm like, you know what? No, this is just not working. I had bought them a wired Pro controller, but they couldn't use it unless it was plugged into the dock, right? And they didn't bring the dock with them. So I went and they've got the Pro A or Power A or whatever the off-brand, but Nintendo licenses them. They've got the little wireless Pro controllers that you can buy now. You don't have to pay the $75 that Nintendo wants for their branded one, right? So I bought that, and I'm sitting there going, okay, just, you know, don't jack that one up, and just make sure you keep it charged, kind of thing, you know. So I mean, now you're okay, now you're good, and but like it was funny, like you sit there, we get our kids everything that, you know, we try to get the kids to stuff that we didn't get to have, stuff that we think that, okay, this is going to be the kind of thing that they're going to remember. Like, you know, can't really afford it because I'm going to have to go without something to make sure you get what you need. But like, you think back when we were kids.
Yeah,
like,
you think about now is
Yeah,
how much
even-
our parents actually
Yeah.
gave up
you know, and then
to get what they want.
But just like today, we do stuff in an underhanded way. We really do as parents. And I say this because my mom spent more time on the Nintendo than the kids did because she was playing Tetris.
Fucking my mom was the same way.
Right? And my
She
dad,
got so good. She got up to like
Yes.
level 99 to 100.
Yes. You know, I'm sitting there, I'm like the pieces are just going, and she just, I'm just
Yeah.
going. And, you know, and then like she like messes up something, and then I'm like, can I play now? Okay, just let me play one more game. And like 30 minutes later, okay, you can play now. I'm like, I'm going to go to bed, you know? But like my dad would sit there and play that golf game, and he got to where he was pretty good at it, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, can I play too? You know, like we can play together. And I started getting really good at that game. Like, you know, in that game when you hit the pin, you hear that ting, you know, it would make that metallic tinging sound, right? And I would constantly hitting the pin.
My thing is griping at my kids, like, why don't you go outside and we buy them all the stuff.
Yeah.
But then I go, why don't you go outside and play and not play on your electronics all day long? And they're like, they look at me like, what are we supposed to do outside? When I was little, we played with dirt, sticks, we built teepees, we just imagination.
The amount of scar tissue on my knees just from falling off my bike. And it wasn't until my parents threatened me with life and limb that I started wearing a bike helmet whenever I'd get onto a bicycle.
Yeah.
And the first day I'm wearing that helmet, I'm out riding my bike around, and I wipe out hard. And I hit the back of my head, and the helmet split into 4 pieces. You know, I'm sitting there, I'm like, well, okay, so I walk my bike back to the house, and I walk in, and my dad was like, you're back early. And I pulled the helmet up, and I showed it to him, and he goes, Jesus Christ, what the fuck? And I was like, yeah, now I know why you wanted me to wear my helmet. You know, I'm just sitting there going,
Or the
"Holy
third degree burns we used to get off that slide.
Oh, yes, when they were really
metal
hot.
slides,
The
yeah.
metal slides.
Yeah. the
Whose brilliant brainchild of that was the
Probably
fuckery?
the same people that came up
I
with
think it was people up in the north.
Yeah, because, you know, it's those people up in the north that are like, they were the same people that, they were like the playpens for like New York City style apartments. They latched onto the windowsill, and you had the kid kind of hanging out in space off the side of the fucking building. You know, it's just like, you see pictures like that, and you're like,
Yeah, like
How is
1920s
that
and stuff like that.
even remotely
Well,
safe.
but it was like, it was Bill Cosby that did the whole skit about when we were kids, you know. Like
No, he just raped women.
What,
With
I was
the
trying to think of
Jell-O
what-
pudding pops.
you know, we played on
With
dangerous
roofie?
equipment. We played on the monkey bars. You'd break arms and legs.
Yes.
You'd play on the metal
I
slides
broke
and burn yourself.
I broke my arm off of one of those slides too.
Never broken a bone in my entire life.
There'd be nails and shards
Fuck
of glass out on our playgrounds, and we were fine.
Yeah, it amazes my son Colin. He's like, I mean, he broke his wrist a couple years ago, and he had to miss an entire season of baseball, and it broke his heart. He's in the doctor's office, they're like, well, it's broken. We got to put a cast on you. And he goes, can I still play baseball? And the nurse looked at him and goes, I'm sorry, honey, no. You won't be able to play this spring. Dude, according to my ex-wife, he started crying. Like, it broke his heart. I mean, it shattered his universe that he could not play baseball.
I think I broken my collarbone, I've broken my arm, I've broken both my ankles. But I've also was into like extreme sports and everything like that.
No, I've dislocated things like my shoulder, my hip, I've blown out my knee. So, I mean, yeah, I get all that. But that's all from like military service, you know, doing that hardcore stuff. But
I had, it's everybody tells me they're like military service, and I just come back and I'm like, I did most of this stuff before I got in the military, doing crazy. I was very active, I mean, I was about to be going into pro for skating,
Oh, wow.
skateboarding, and I was doing what happened with both my ankles breaking. I broke both my ankles at the same time, because when I was doing the ramp, I went in, went up, skateboard did not follow me, and I hit the top of the ramp with both my ankles.
I broke my right ankle. Junior prom.
I stopped skateboarding after that. I mean, every once in a while I'll skateboard.
when I realized that I couldn't effectively do an ollie, I realized at that point in time, very early on in the 90s, skateboarding was not in my future.
But I was the cat. I played ball. I played volleyball, basketball. It was sophomore year, and I was telling him we would play with fevers. My sister and I, because my dad was the coach, and he'd come in like with medicine during school. He'd be like, "Here, take this because I need you to play tonight."
That's her uphill both ways, 12 inches of snow, or 12 feet of snow.
Yes.
In the
Well,
middle.
look at what they put in Coca-Cola back then. And when it was pure cocaine, it was like 3.6 ounces of cocaine in
I'm
the.
sorry, I'm going
Yeah.
to stop you right there. We are not that old,
Uh,
okay? They didn't put cocaine in Coca-Cola when our parents were kids. They stopped doing that shit in the 1880s, dude.
Yeah, but
Fuck
you know,
you.
going back to where our grandparents, you know, went uphill and everything.
Thank you for clarifying, but
But-
you were like, oh, you would to put Coca-Cola.
but freshman year, I was
Whatever.
playing.
That's the gray hair.
Freshman
Don't worry.
and JV ball. Had played a freshman game, went to play the JV game, broke my nose in the ball game. Couldn't see, my nose is bleeding, and it blacked my eye, and I couldn't see, and I was pissed that my dad made me come out to sit on the bench. And I look at my kids these days, and they're like, I don't feel good, I need to go to school, and I'm like, seriously? I played a ball game with a broken nose, you know, I've done all of this, you can suck it up. But then they call and ask for things, and I'm mom, and I'm
No,
like,
even I found out I was allergic to bees. It was when I got stung by a bee on my bottom of my foot, and it was so bad where I couldn't walk. I was in a wheelchair for a while, and I gave up on I couldn't deal with the wheelchair. I was just crawling around. I was like 11. Clawing around, and my friends came by. I was like, "Hey, can you come out and play? We haven't seen you in a while," and everything like that, and everything. And I was crawling around. I was like, "Man," and I was like, "Yeah, sure." My mom stopped me. She's like, "What are you thinking, David?" I was like, "I'm going outside and play with my friends. They're my friends. I want to play with my friends."
But the kids these days. But
And-
then again, we can't complain. I can't complain because at the same time, I'm like, "Are you okay? Do you feel good? You need to sit down. You need to drink."
Yes.
When
Do you need
I
an
should
ice
be
I
pack?
like,
get that from her, too.
when I should be like, but I should be like, you need to suck it up and rub some dirt on it and go. But
Oh, God.
Yeah.
I remember I was home. It was like, I think it was my junior year. The flu just knocked me in the dirt. I mean, just completely just Adam Vinatieri style, kicked me straight in the dick, dude. And I am out. I mean, I'm delirious. My fever is that high, right? Could not function. And I'm laying there in the living room, and my dad was off work that day, because it was after he got out of the Navy. And he looks at me and he goes, "You just gonna lay around all day?" And I'm like,
I have the flu.
you know, I'm like sitting there going, like, he goes, "Why don't you get up and go do something?" I literally rolled off the couch and I'm crawling around the coffee table to leave the living room, and he goes, "Get up and go clean your room. Go do something." And I'm like, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, what the fuck? You know? But, you know, I'm sitting there going, you know, it's moments like that where you just kind of go, oh, okay, he's just trying to make me a hard ass, you know.
Mhm.
And even now, it's like, okay, and I guess it's different because I guess I'm a dad, you know, and I still want to kind of hover over him a little bit, and it's mostly because the whole single dad thing, but I want to hover over them a little bit, make sure that they understand that they're being protected and cared for and taken care of. But at the same time, I'm like, they need to toughen up. And
Yeah, even my daughter, she was like, I know you're
Yeah.
trying to toughen me up, Dad, but I don't really want, because she has that thing with heights.
like my
And
son,
we went rock climbing, and I was like,
Reagan,
get to it. She's like, what do you mean get to it?
Mhm.
She's like, Dad. And then the thing bounced up. She's like, you're not trying to kill me. I was like, yeah, I'm not trying to kill you. There's a rope and there's this net and everything like that. But she only got like 5 feet. She's like, just awkward. I was like, push through.
Yeah.
I took my kids to the mountains, to Mount Scott a couple weeks ago, and Reagan is usually my reserved one, and he's my SB kid, right?
That's Sammy.
And so he's usually the very cautious one, right? And so we're bouncing around on the rocks up there on top of Mount Scott, right, getting right up to the edge and everything. For whatever reason that day, Colin just assumed the role of the cautious one, right? As he's wanting to climb on stuff, Reagan just gets, because I let him play the Switch. I bought a Switch Lite, and Reagan's playing it the whole way up there. He's watching YouTube on the iPad or whatever, right? So, he's staying occupied in the back seat. Colin and I are sitting there joking around. He's watching TikTok videos on his phone. And we get there, and I'm like, put the screens away. Just put the screens away. We're coming out here. I'm going to keep my phone so that way we can take pictures. And, but as soon as Reagan pulled his head away from the screen, we're on top of the mountain, bouncing around on rocks. He is running right up to the edge of stuff. He's wanting to climb on shit. And he's like, parkour, and it was like Michael Scott and Dwight Schrute, parkour, and he's just jumping all over the place. Colin is sitting there going, oh, and I'm like, dude, yeah, right? Just stay back away from the edge a little bit. You can.
I had a fucked off uncle. So when we went up to Wichita Mountains one time, my uncle ended up going on one of these boulders, and there was a boulder in front of it, but you couldn't see it. He's like, hey, Vonda, check this out, and he jumps off. It's like and he made this big crunching sound. And my mom flips out. Like, Roger, what are you doing? Blah, 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 blah. He goes up, she goes up there, and I'm just sitting there. It's like, what's happening? And he pops up and is like, oh, that's cool. And my mom is just freaking, because he's the baby. He was the baby of the family.
Yeah,
And
so-
he do messed up things to.
That's my
but-
youngest. No fear.
Yeah, so, all right, so kind of coming back around, so we can go ahead and get this wrapped up, because I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure we're coming up on 2 hours, but.
No, we're not coming up with 2 hours, but it's
what's
like
that,
hour
and a half?
and a half, and we got to do another episode after this. But
Okay, oh yeah, that's right, because we still have our psychopaths
Yeah.
episode, so, but, anyway, so parents dumping their kids off, knowing that they're gonna get back, deported back.
yeah, we just gave prime examples how everybody has fucked off stories about how.
But it's the
They're-
fact that these organizations are taking advantage of the kids and they're making money off of them.
Yeah,
And, while they may not be selling these kids.
it's becoming it's literally
to me,
becoming
it's still
like a
trafficking, because they're using these kids for profit.
yeah.
And it's tantamount the same thing. It's 6 1/2, 1 dozen the other. Either you sell a kid off for the sex trade, you sell them off for forced labor, or you're out there making money off of them. You're still generating a profit off of these kids who didn't have any control over the fact that they were injected into this situation, and it was because of their shitty parents.
And there's
Coming
other
up.
times where they're being abused, being
Yeah.
sexually abused.
And
By the workers.
the worker, yeah,
Yeah.
in that story,
Workers.
yeah, and it's like they're being held,
Prisoner. And
these
they even have-
organizations don't have they're not vetting the kids that are coming in. They're not vetting the people that are coming across the border, and they're not vetting the people that are being placed in charge over these kids.
And they're actually given on some of the occasions they're not allowed to like me and you, if we were both orphans, we went to an orphanage, and they would like separate us and make sure that we don't hug each other, we don't give each other affection, which in all reality, kids that young, if you give them a little bit of affection, of caring and compassion and everything like that, they turn out with good kids.
Mhm.
I mean, it's just ridiculous and stupid that you would do something like that. I'm always if a kid comes up to me and the parent says it's okay, I'm not gonna go up and hug a kid I don't fucking know. It's fucking weird and creepy. But if they ask me for help and everything like that, yeah, I get them the help.
Well, as a child, that young age, like little, all the way like 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, physical touch is but in an appropriate manner. A hug, high five,
Yeah.
that is that's something that they need to build them. It's a need.
Yeah, it's like me right now. I mean, once you get like really, really close to knowing me and everything, I'm a fucking hugger. I love hugging people. And this whole year that we're not supposed to, come in like 6 feet of each other, it's like I'll handshake, everything. You get that physical contact
Mhm.
with another person. It shows you the compassion and everything like that, and it shows you, that the world's not going to be a horrible fucking place. This is probably a reason why a lot of people committed suicide this past year, is because they didn't have somebody going,
It's a
hey,
human
how's it
based
going,
need.
man? Everything's going to be all right. Or, man, everything's going to be all right. You didn't have that human contact. Human contact is so important in other people's lives.
Yep.
I mean, even saying hi. I mean, I'm always saying hi to people and everything, because you don't know how bad that person's day was.
Exactly.
That one moment could change the rest of their day to the point to where, you know what, everything's going to turn out all right.
Mhm.
And that's what a lot of people don't understand.
Yep.
So, ending this episode, coming back, and we touched on it a little bit, but on the What the Hell episodes, I'm going to have to say eventually on
Yeah,
all of
eventually.
them.
We may end up having to change the name of our podcast to the Eventually Podcast,
No, they already have that one. That's why I said What the Hell.
Oh, well, okay, yeah, all right, the Eventually yeah. Now I'm gonna have to go find it just to see what that's all about.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So, I'm David Dickerman. Can't even say my name right.
And I'm Johnny Skelton because I can speak coherently.
Yeah. And this is What the Hell. It's
Mindy Berriger.
Mindy Berriger. So,
Special guest today.
check us out on YouTubes and stuff like that. We'll talk to you later, guys. Goodbye.